Welcome to CEWT Talk. This broadcast is brought to you by the Continuing Education Workforce Training Division of Idaho State University's College of Technology. This podcast is part of our continuing outreach efforts, and the format is conversational. We will be having conversations with businesses, professionals, entrepreneurs, community agencies, and, in all cases, difference makers. Now, let's get started with CEWT Talk. Well, welcome everyone to CEWT Talk. I'm Jason Batalden. I'm the Assistant Director here at Continuing Education Workforce Training, and welcome to our podcast. Today we have Stephanie Taylor Silva, and I'm going to give her a minute to introduce herself. And just for the record, I've been looking forward to this podcast since we talked on the phone. So I guess I have to disclose a little bit. I've known Stephanie for a period of time now. And have really looking for this opportunity to kind of have you on the podcast, to kind of share with what you're doing and the exciting things you're doing. And so with that, I'm just going to turn it over to you because I'll mess it all up, and we'll end up telling stories that no one else should really hear. So anyway, that's, we don't want
of my supervision.
No, we don't. Hey, and I wasn't part of that. I got on all the fun stuff. So, Stephanie, please introduce yourself to our.
Okay, so my name is Stephanie Taylor Silva. I am with the Idaho Department of Correction, District 7 Probation and Parole Office. I'm a reentry specialist. I am also a formerly incarcerated person and a person in long-term recovery.
Right on. Mm-hmm. So, let's get the basics out of the way.
Okay.
Reentry specialist. Okay. What is it? What is that?
So a reentry specialist with the Idaho Department of Correction assists our returning citizen population. So I am primarily focused on people coming out of prison. However, I'm a support to anybody that is on supervision within my district. So we serve quite a few counties in my district. So I help anybody that is coming out on probation or parole. A rider, it's a retained jurisdiction, it's commonly referred to as a rider. I'll get a lot of people coming out on rider returns. They return back to probation. So I'm there to help support them, make sure that they've got all of the necessary resources they need to succeed in both their supervision and their recovery. It's imperative that people have that support. You just can't be successful without those resources and adequate support in your life.
So is this I guess when I use the term, is this a relatively new program? I mean, this reentry specialist position has not always been part of the IDOC offerings for those citizens returning out of incarceration. Yeah,
it is a new position. The department has really been focused on reentry, on our reentry efforts. There are reentry specialists in the Boise area, but that's primarily where they've been focused. My position is brand new. It's the first one in Southeast Idaho,
oh, wow.
So I'm super excited.
Very cool.
Yeah,
so
it's been great.
So you're kind of, I mean, obviously, Boise, and I'm not dismissing Boise, but
the great state of Ada.
Thank you for saying that, not making me say that, right? I can get in trouble. No, we
I probably could too.
No, you can't. No, you can't, by the way. So the great state of Ada. So you're cutting new territory over here. I mean, I'm sure you have a model that they've used, but you're kind of. Does District 6, are you the only one in East Idaho right now?
Yeah, I'm the only one in East Idaho right now. Right. So my position is pretty unique to District 7. I'm really blessed that I'm able to kind of shape this position and what we need it to look like. So, every area in Idaho is different, as you know.
Yes.
We don't have the large metropolitan area like Boise, so District 7 it's this reentry specialist position is unique. I've been with the department in some capacity for quite some time,
Right.
as a formerly incarcerated person and now a person that works for the department. So I've really been able to take that perspective on, what resources are people really needing? What do people need to be successful on supervision?
Right.
What did I need?
So that's the question. I mean, that it was the first thing that kind of jumped in my mind is you have a very unique perspective on the Idaho Department of Corrections from, as being incarcerated yourself, and then I'm assuming being on probation, successfully completing that probation period, and then now working back for the department. So that perspective, how does that play into this position where you're actually kind of helping people do what you did?
I do have a unique background, and in a lot of ways, I think that makes me really great at what I do. I'll be honest, I am really good at what I do. I pride myself on that.
Well, hold on just a minute. Not only is she's being absolutely honest, but there's a couple things. You were recently recognized as the award you got here just a little bit ago, recognized for.
Yeah, so
what was that?
I was really blessed to receive a couple awards
Right.
recently. One was the Idaho Hometown Hero Award.
Yes, that's what it was. Yes.
And then another one is I won a national award, the Excellence in AmeriCorps Award. That one was presented to me in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
Really cool.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah.
And so she's just not talking. She's legit. She's really good at what she does. I just wanted to reinforce that. But so going back to having that perspective. So when you come someone comes, so they've been incarcerated, whether it's been on a rider or more of a long-term sentence, right? They come out, and then what happens? I mean, how does that happen? I mean, they come out in probation. I imagine that experience coming right out of lockup into the free world, so to speak, on supervision is a little bit overwhelming.
Oh, it's really overwhelming. For the population that has never been in prison, I think it's really hard to conceptualize.
Yes.
What does that look like when somebody is incarcerated, and what does it look like when they come out? It is an extremely overwhelming process, and if you do not have support and the resources you need, you're going to fail. Everybody's incarceration, just like everybody's supervision, looks different. It's not this cookie cutter experience that, what somebody may need is not going to work for another person. For example, my own experience, I am a survivor of human trafficking. I'm a survivor of, a sexual assault, an attempted murder on my life. I have some extreme trauma as well as adverse childhood experiences, and until those were addressed in prison, there's no way I was going to move forward. And
then even though those were addressed in there, you had to take what you learned and try to now apply it in a completely different environment.
Yeah,
And that took what? What did that take to make that happen for you?
A tremendous amount of support and resources. I had, I call our district the best district to me, but I had really great support from my PO and really from the entire district that supervised me. They took a unique approach to me. Like I said, it wasn't this cookie cutter experience, and they really looked at me as an individual and said, what does Stephanie need to succeed? For me, that was intensive trauma-informed care. It was getting into safe housing, getting into vocational rehabilitation, and eventually, getting into higher education. I'm a graduate of ISU,
Yay!
a proud Bengal.
Yes,
so,
right on, very good.
Yeah. So, everybody's supervision looks different. There are people that come out of prison with more support than others. So that's where this mentor program comes into play.
Okay, we got to talk about the mentor
Yes.
program. I'm going to hold up the little thing for our video. If you're listening on the podcast, I'm holding up a flyer. Just trust me, it's there. But it's the mentor program is called
Free to
Free
Succeed.
to Succeed. Okay,
Mhm.
and you have well, okay. I am clueless. I know it exists. I know you have something to do with it. So what? Talk to me about the mentor program.
So I think this is another great example of what the department is doing to strengthen our reentry efforts and really shift into that perspective of recovery and rehabilitation and adequate support for our returning citizens. Free to Succeed is 3 years old. At that time, it was developed under then Director Kevin Kemp. Amazing man. If you do not know him, you need to Google him. He's absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
But at that time, he was a bishop in Nampa, and he was having people come back into the church from the prison system and looking at them like, man, these people just need extra support.
Right.
So he really took that perspective and thought, the department needs to do something. We need to be better on providing support for people coming out of prison and those that are already on supervision. So we developed this mentor program called Free to Succeed. I think what is really unique about this program is, for the first time in the department's history, they are really okay with association. Back when, when
Right.
I was 18 years old, you would get violated for associating with another person on supervision.
Right.
If somebody is doing well in their supervision and recovery, we're going to ask that person, hey, you know what, you're doing so well, would you mind being a model to somebody else that is on supervision? Because
That's a good idea.
who better to know how to be successful on probation or parole than somebody who's already been there?
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Very cool. So I'm assuming, mentor, you use this term mentor.
Mm-hmm.
Who are your mentors? Are they only people on probation or on supervision?
No, so we actually have mentors from all walks of life. We have, in my district, I have mentors from the Catholic Church, from the LDS Church. I have mentors that are lawyers in our community. I have mentors that are their teachers in our community. So really all walks of life. I think everybody has something to offer, and what it really comes down to is just loving people and seeing that they are,
Being successful. and
yeah,
helping them.
they're worth helping. Everybody is worth helping.
Right on. Yeah, actually, thank you. Thank you for saying that. So how does, if someone out there listening would be interested in becoming a mentor, how does that work?
So you go to the Idaho Department of Correction website, and on that website there's a link for volunteers and mentors, and you click on that link, and then there is another link for mentor application. You fill out a brief application and just some basic info. We don't go into anything too in depth, and for the very first time in the department's history, we're really kind of looking past background checks for our
So as
mentors.
long as you interest, do you have to be trained to be a mentor?
You do. There's an initial training and then some enhancement trainings. The initial training is about 4 hours long. That is presented by our Free to Succeed program manager, Jeff Kirkman.
Oh,
He's
okay.
another really amazing person. I absolutely love that man. He's one of my mentors in my life. I get kind of choked up when I talk about
okay.
him,
That's
but
okay.
he's just awesome. So you'll go through training with Jeff and me and our new mentor site coordinator who comes on November 12th.
Okay.
And you'll go through that training, and then you basically get to pick your mentee. An application will get sent over to you for you to review, and you see if that will be a good match
So you
for
like
you.
meet for coffee one morning and sit down and talk?
Yeah,
Is that how that works?
I first started out as a mentor site coordinator with AmeriCorps, and then moved into my reentry specialist position. So I was very involved with that program, and a lot of those first time meetings they came into my office for the first time they meet, and they just develop into the coolest relationships.
Yeah.
Like,
So that's kind of leads my next question. Now, I mean, just in all honesty and fairness, I mean, I used to work for the Idaho Department of Corrections, a lifetime and a half ago. So let's talk.
I've been there for a
Hey,
lifetime.
stop now! Stop now! You're not as old as me. But let's talk about success, because that's when I was at the Department of Corrections, that R word, right? Recidivism. That's always that big word. People come out from a period, they aren't successful in the community, and they end up reoffending, violating probation, or any number of other things, and end up reincarcerated at that time. And that has always been a goal. I mean, the department's, how do we address that issue? This, I'm assuming, the Free to Succeed, the reentry specialist position are designed specifically to address recidivism, correct? Is that kind of what the goal is?
I think we've really moved away from that horrible R word.
Yeah, right on. Thank you.
We currently have a recidivism rate of it runs between 35% in Idaho. And I think what we're doing now, more so what I see, and definitely what I teach people, is focus on that 65% that is doing really, really well. We have so many amazing people on supervision and returning citizens that are just, handling it, and they are just awesome. They are succeeding, and they're doing well, and they're giving back to our communities, and they're law-abiding, productive members. That's the 65%. That's what we want to talk about, and look at that. What is helping these people succeed, and giving that back to the other population that is still struggling.
That just kind of made my day to hear that. Thank you for sharing that. It is really cool. Really cool. So, reentry specialist, Free to Succeed, mentor program. What else do you do? Of the many things you do.
Well,
what do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun? I love being with my family. Yeah. I don't have children of my own. I have dogs, and I now have cats.
Okay. All right.
But I love that. I really love to serve in my community. I get asked that a lot. What do you do for fun, Stephanie? Really, I love to serve in my community. That is fun to me. It just makes me so happy. But like most Idahoans, I also like to camp and fish, you do all that fun stuff. So
right on.
Cook and eat, and
yeah, cook and eat. That's good too. Right. Well, I guess maybe I kind of jumped ahead a little bit, but I want to go back to something you said earlier. When you came out of when you re-entered into the community, right? You were on supervision. You had gained some skills and some clinical work that you had done in prison, and you needed to continue that on. How did you learn to ask for help? How did that process happen? Because you don't, right? If you don't know how to express, hey, I need help with this, that's the number one key to be actually making that change, right? Is being able to admit that you need that help to make that change.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because I really think that's what got me in prison. Definitely my poor decisions, but I never knew how to ask for help, and I was scared to ask for it. That me learning how to ask for help actually was learned in prison. You hear all this horrible stuff about prisons, and it's so disheartening. I feel like, too often the bad things make the news rather than the good things. But our chief of prisons and our wardens that we have and the staff in there are amazing. They work their tails off to ensure that that's, a safe place and a healthy place. The staff that, in the South Boise Women's Correctional Center, when I was in there, they were just awesome. They, it's kind of crazy even thinking about this, but it was really the first time in my life I'd been treated like a human being.
Oh my goodness. I don't mean to laugh at that. I mean, what an amazing realization for you to have, that in what is typically recognized as the worst moment in your life, was the first time in your life you found value, someone else valued you and found you worthwhile?
Yeah, really. I
Oh,
mean,
gosh.
I went to prison when I was 27 here, and out of my 27 years, that was the first time that, I felt like I was a human being. I felt like I mattered, and, I wasn't this reusable commodity.
Oh, my
And so that's really where I first started, getting a backbone and feeling some strength was in prison. There was really strong women in there that, we have COs in there that they can tell when you're struggling,
Right.
and, they'd sit down, hey, what's going on? So I just took that and I ran with it when I got out, and thankfully I had, another correctional professional, my PO, who was another strong person in my life and treated me like a human being, saw my worth, and she just helped build on that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You know, that's the timer. Yeah, I'm gonna hit stop. First of all, what a testimony to what the difference you can have in someone's life when you take the time to value that person's life, right?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes in life, in the world we live in, it's so easy for us to ignore the value of someone else, right? If they can't, if they don't contribute to our bottom line, if they don't contribute to some tangible way, then they don't mean anything to us. And I think having that opportunity to communicate to someone, no, you are important just because of who you are. Look at the power, look what that did.
Yeah, look what my mentors did in my life.
Okay, so we're done with the podcast, but I'm gonna ask you to share one thing.
Okay.
You, when you completed your probation, you worked for a goal, and you achieved that goal. And you want to share what that was? Do you know what I'm referring to?
Which ones was it? My pardons?
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
so I was actually, I had worked so hard on my supervision and in my recovery that I was granted a full pardon from Idaho and a full pardon from Montana. Those are not easy to get.
No.
They're not just given away. So, yeah, major goal, huge thing, and I just teach other people that that's possible.
Thank you, Stephanie. And I hope, I just want to share, Stephanie has been one of the more inspirational people I've met. We met years ago through a thing after you'd gotten out, kind of another situation we kind of helped you with. And talk about support, right? And we were able to kind of help you through a difficult time.
Really difficult
But I
time.
got introduced to her, and then I just sort of kept my eye on her because she was so inspirational and so wonderful. And you are an inspiration to me, and I hope you'll be an
Thank you.
inspiration to the people who listen. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you. I didn't get any feedback from my illustrious audience, so that's what I was hoping to hear. Yes, it's a whole nother world if you've never heard it. So with that being said, we're going to shut this down. Thank you for listening to Sweet Talk. You can find us on the website, on the web, at cetrain.isu.edu. That is cetrain@isu.edu. And as always, I just forgot our phone number. Oh, come on. None of you. That's 208 282 3372. I know there's a bunch of twos in there. So thank you very much. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
And you guys have a great and wonderful day, and have a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Yes.
You too.
All right. Thank you. Very good. Very good.